Sweet. Man, fucking forgot how to do this shit, man. Let me see. Oh, there we go. It's been a while since I've done this. It's been a while since I've done this. Oh man. How's everybody doing? Just gonna make sure to let the world know that I'm doing this. All 12 people that used to watch me do this. Yeah, so I'm not back. I'll say that much. I'm not back. I know you see me in front of you right now. I see you on, if you're used to watching my Raiders streams, I definitely am back for the first time in a while, but it's not going to become a regular thing. I'm good. I had a lot of stuff to say because obviously the Raiders have changed quarterbacks. We got free agency coming up, draft picks for like the first time in forever. And, you know, it's Dave Ziegler's got a first round pick now. I mean, as far as we know it. So, um, yeah, let me just get this out here. So let's see. All right, cool. Yeah. So let's talk. Let's talk Derek Carr first, right? No more Derek Carr. You guys know me. I was kind of a fan of him. I liked him. Thought he was good. I think ultimately Derek Carr, I've said this for a while. Derek Carr is a litmus test for how good your organization is. Can you make the playoffs with Derek Carr? That means you got a pretty good roster. If you don't make the playoffs with Derek Carr, you got a bad roster. He also can be contributing to you not making the playoffs, but ultimately, the Raiders had 5 first round picks in a 2-year stretch where 2 of the guys went to jail, 2 of the guys are complete non-factors, and one of the guys is a running back that you're having trouble paying, and you have to franchise tag him and all these kind of things. So, ultimately, I didn't like the debate where people put all of the franchises failures on Derek Carr. I thought that was kind of bad faith. I thought that was kind of a midwit thing to do. But that being said, he's also not the difference maker. So if you don't have a difference maker at that position, you do have to try to upgrade. You cannot keep rewarding average play, right? And last year was subpar with him. So if you have this new coach in Josh McDaniels that you're gonna give a couple of years to, and Derek Carr doesn't look good in that system, go find your guy, right? Now, I don't think that I'm not one of those people that thinks whoever we replace Derek Carr with is automatically better because it's just simply not true, right? But I think that the average quarterback that's younger than Derek Carr is more oftentimes a little bit more athletic than him, or at least more willing and natural of an athlete. Where some of the biggest frustrating parts of last year were um, when it would be like 3rd and 4, all right. And if you don't like Josh McDaniels' play calling, I probably agree with you on a lot of stuff. And it did feel like some of the third down calls might have been a little bit predictable. Sometimes they were even just like toss sweeps and then like punting it on 4th and 1, which was insane. That being said, the goal is that we just need a quarterback that if there's nothing there on 3rd and 4, can you get me 4 yards somehow? Whether that's extending the play to where somebody can improvise and get open, and then can you fit a tight window throw? Can you just straight up pick it up with your legs, right? Because if when you watch the Raiders on defense, that happens to the Raiders almost every 3rd down. Now they're not the most talented defense, obviously, but you watch other quarterbacks do it and you wonder why can't my guy do that? So I think that's what the Raiders have to do now. If you get rid of Derek Carr, there's no reason to go find another Derek Carr, right? Don't go get Jimmy G unless you're developing this great quarterback behind Jimmy G and you just want somebody that's familiar with the offense to run the offense, be able to pick it up kind of quick, keep Devontae Adams happy, keep Darren Waller fed, keep Hunter Renfrow fed, get just guys that aren't going to have to figure out how to play the position, right? While you have one of these really good raw athletes that you develop behind him kind of ready to step in at any moment, like an Anthony Richardson, like a Will Levis, like a Bryce Young. Hey, I haven't ruled out Bryce Young falling to 7 yet. You can't tell me that someone who's 5'10" is guaranteed to go number 1 overall, right? So what I'm saying is let's not chase average. Let's not find average and you know, I don't think I think we need to get aggressive at the position, and I think you need to chase insane amounts of upside. Like, there's a big debate now amongst Raider Nation whether Anthony Richardson is the guy at 7 or even trading up or getting him at 10. I don't know. He's not going to be there at 10. I knew the minute the combine happened, this dude was going to straight up take a fucking Fahrenheit 451 flamethrower to scouts stopwatches. Like, it was just going to be like, he's just, I'm sorry, athleticism is way too supreme now as far as athleticism translates into success, right? I think in the NFL, there's never been more of a time where raw athleticism translates into instant success. You know, like, think about guys like Dexter McCluster and people like that. I remember like the Chiefs had Dexter McCluster for a long time. Titans had him. And it's like, I guarantee if Dexter McCluster's in this draft class, somebody drafts him and he has a Kadarius Toney type impact on a team. You know, whereas in the past it was kind of like, yeah, but you don't know what the fuck you're doing out there. So we can't do anything with you. You don't want to sit there and just take handoffs from running back. I don't know what I'm going to do for you. I think the same thing goes with quarterback, right? You do have to sit there in the pocket. You do have to sit there in the pocket and make a throw. And I think all of these guys can, right? The Strouds, Bryce Young, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. These guys all can do that. However, that you're not drafting them for that. You're drafting them for this special play. That's why I do like all 4 of these guys, because you want the special play. And I think in a division, in a conference, I don't really like drafting for your division, except if it's to compete with a quarterback in your division, because usually those guys stay in the only thing that stays on teams are quarterbacks when they're really good, right? You know, Herbert and Mahomes are going to be here for a long time. They're going to be here for a long time. I mean, I'll say it, unless the Chargers have some historic thing where Herbert, you know, they can't figure out a way to pay Herbert. I won't rule out the Chargers charging. But for a while, we have Mahomes for at least the next decade, right? Like, we need to find a quarterback that can maybe not be as good, because that's a tall order, right? That's not fair to say the quarterback we draft has to be as good as Mahomes. But we need to have the big playability that he has, right? Which is why I say you keep taking swings on the Anthony Richardson. I think Will Levis is very explosive. And I think Levis, a lot of people tend to just say, what have you done for me lately? Right? What have you done for me lately? They look at the last 6 games of Levis's career, right? They were, by all intents and purposes, they were not great. Now, I invite you to go check out Marcus Johnson, Tape Don't Lie, his breakdown of Will Levis against Ole Miss, and you'll see a lot of the passing concepts that Josh McDaniels loves. Will Levis is executing them pretty damn flawlessly, right? And with Levis, I really like him a lot, and I think he's tied to the Raiders a lot. There's a lot of hype coming out saying that Will Levis is, you know, right on the whether it's a smokescreen or not. I don't know. I think there's a little bit more fire there than most smokescreens. But I think a lot of people are scared, right? They're scared. They're like, I don't know. It just he regressed really hard to his senior year. Well, first off, his junior year was fantastic, right? His junior year, before he had the foot injury, and he had quite literally a professional coordinator, right? A guy, Liam Cohen, who ended up going to I can't remember what team he went to, but he went to the NFL. Then the next year, Will Levis, Kentucky didn't really replace the talent like Wan'Dale Robinson and stuff. They didn't replace those guys. So if you watch a lot of the 50-50 balls that he would throw, they're nice. A lot of them are nice throws. Just guys aren't making plays, right? And I think that we have, you know, maybe one of the best 50-50 guys in the history of football, Devontae Adams as our wide receiver. Darren Waller is also very good at the 50-50 ball. Hunter Renfrow makes plays. Like, I think if you put him in an offense, I think when people say his traits translate better to the pros, I think that's what they're talking about, right? Is Will Levis is going to give guys a chance. He has an extremely quick release. I think a lot of people are mad at his footwork at times, which I can see. And I think he rushes or even slows down. His timing is what needs work. I think that's going to be the developmental side of Will Levis is the timing, how fast or how long he should hold on to the ball. That's going to be the reason that you're going to need the bridge quarterback, the Baker Mayfield, perhaps the Garoppolo, the insert expatriate quarterback here, and that's what you're going to need him for, right? I like Bryce Young a lot too. I don't particularly want a short quarterback. I I don't. Well, sorry. One more thing on Levis. Watch some of his runs, man. I honestly think you can do design runs with Will Levis. He is not scared to get punished. Um, I know you don't want your quarterback getting ragdolled like that, but he's a big, strong guy. And I think you can do some design stuff with him. And I think if you're going to bring Josh Jacobs back for another year or perhaps longer, it's good to have a quarterback. I think that only helps Josh Jacobs when the defense has to worry about a keeper with a quarterback or a bootleg, a rollout, something like that. So that's an interesting point that Tier brings up that Champ Kelly went to Kentucky and probably is still plugged into the football program there. When you're that much of a football guy, you keep tabs on your school, right? And it's too bad we don't have any pros coming out of John Carroll University, right? Like or any diamonds in the rough that McDaniels and Ziegler could help us out with. But Champ Kelly going to Kentucky, and I definitely like Levis. I think he's extremely athletic. I think last year he was playing through a foot injury, and it's reported that the offensive coordinator, the newer offensive coordinator, that by all intents and purposes looked like a regression for the program, did not want Levis running, which is insane to me. Like you're trying to win football games in the SEC by any means necessary. You need to pick up yardage. So I do think that he translates better to the pros than a lot of people think he does. Bryce Young, I like a lot. He's small. He definitely is slight. I mean, he's came into the combine at 204, but I mean, how much of that was just like muscle milk and shit? You know what I mean? Like you don't know, but I think he's obviously the most talented quarterback. I think he's smart as hell. I think people kind of I thought it was unfair for people to compare him to Steph Curry, like that style of play, like just that kind of like circus style, like off one foot throw, Mahomesian in a sense. But I can't say that that's unwarranted. I think he can make that crazy Steph Curry, somebody running into him, throw, like hitting a tight end perfectly over the middle. I do like him a lot. I do see a scenario where post combine you see the Anthony Richardsons and the CJ Strouds going first too, and then Bryce Young kind of being there for the taking. Bryce Young literally ran the Patriots offense, or the Earhart Perkins offense that Josh McDaniels has with the Raiders. So you want to talk about a guy that could start right away? I would think it'd be Bryce Young. Definitely wouldn't pass on him. If it's between Bryce Young and Levis, I just kind of let the organization decide because I like both. I like both guys there. Tough to pick. I do like Levis for the size, though. I will say but I like Bryce Young for the immediate, just jump right in and be a beast. Would be fine with either. Talked about Richardson. I think Richardson's a stud. If Richardson's there at 7, you gotta try. You gotta try. It's a gamble, but I think it's a gamble you have to make. Big arm. Yes, he's not that accurate, but oh my gosh, special with the ball in his hands. Huge, tough to bring down. I mean, I even thought about if the Ravens were actually gonna be able to let Lamar Jackson go, if somebody were to give him a big offer and then the Ravens got 2 first-round picks, I would think they would try to go get Anthony Richardson, because I do think, even though he's not as good as Lamar coming out, I do think you can do similar things that you do with Lamar Jackson. So love him. I will say the one guy I'm not like in love with, though I would be okay with it, is CJ Stroud. Everybody loves CJ Stroud, and yes, I think he throws a very nice ball. But there's nothing that like I love about his game. There's not one thing. Like he can make a couple nice throws, but he's also throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like just an offense that, and people love to say, how do you know about the Ohio State offense? It's like, watch it. I'm sorry. Like watch the Ryan Day passing concepts. Like there's a reason that guys like don't pick it up right away when they come to the NFL out of the Ryan Day offense. Like it's just different. Like there's this spacing, like the windows are huge in this Ohio State offense because you have amazing all pro wide receivers or all American wide receivers jumping, just like with like 5 yards of open space. So I guess what I'm saying is people think that CJ Stroud is the guy, the day one starter, right? I don't know that I see him any more ready than any of these other guys. And then I also don't see the big playability with the legs that all the other quarterbacks have. All the other quarterbacks can run. All the other CJ Stroud is a very athletic guy. He does not run. And you can't say that that's not what his college coach asked of him because Justin Fields was in the same system a couple years ago, and Justin Fields is a phenomenal runner. It's the thing that makes Justin Fields a good NFL quarterback, right? He's developing as a passer, but for now, he's gaining yards and scoring with his legs, right? Does Stroud have that ability to win with his legs early while he adjusts to NFL windows and things like that? I am not an expert. I could be completely wrong. And Stroud doesn't like, I'm not like, ugh, like Stroud, like I was with like Dwayne Haskins, and guys that came out of Ohio State before that. I loved Justin Fields coming out, but because he was big, strong, could run, and had a big arm. It's like, same reason I like Anthony Richardson. It's just like big, strong, big arm, can run. I try it out every time. That's what you have to do if you want to compete with Mahomes. You got to get somebody like that. So I mean, Stroud to me, I have him as QB4, and people like don't like that. People think, and I think he's going to end up going second out of every quarterback. And I think a lot of them are going to go extremely early. I think the Raiders might have to move up to 3. The only way I would do that is for a quarterback, right? It's the only way I would do that. I don't want the Raiders to trade up for Will Anderson. I don't want the Raiders to trade up for Jalen Carter, although it seems like Jalen Carter is going to be a Kansas City Chief or a Dallas Cowboy. I hate to break it to you guys. I don't know. Something to me screams that's going to be one of those themes that like in the third round gets Jalen Carter and everyone's like, oh shit, what happened? Like, oh man, like how did this guy slip? And all of a sudden, like no legal issues happen, and he's the starting defensive tackle for the Chiefs alongside Chris Jones. And you're just like, oh wow, great, wonderful. But yeah, I don't trade up for any of those guys. The Raiders have far too many holes to be trading up for a position player that's not a quarterback, right? Do a little mock for us. Where do you see the top 4 quarterbacks go? Okay. Ooh. No trades or trades? Okay, we'll say trades because I mean no trades is stupid because there's absolutely going to be trades. Number 1 overall, I think that pick ends up getting traded. I think Indy's going to go up to. I think Indy's going to get up to 1, and they're going to get. Indy's going to get up to 1. And I think Indy's going to take Anthony Richardson, number 1. Big bold claim. Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young, but I think they might swing for the fences on Richardson for the size. The reason I say that is because Frank Reich's not there anymore. Because if Frank Reich was there, Derek Carr's an Indianapolis Colt, in my opinion. But or Jimmy G or something like that, veteran quarterback, right? Something like that. Shane Steichen's there right now, and Shane Steichen just had success with Jalen Hurts, so it actually might be Bryce Young. But I could see them really falling in love with like Anthony Richardson's ball carrying ability and stuff like that, and his big arm, and knowing how Jalen Hurts came out of Alabama is not a completely polished passer, maybe just being confident in that sense. So that would be my guess. I think the Texans are gonna go with so I think it's either gonna be. So I'll say Richardson number 1. I'll swing for the fences there for this sake. I think that 2 Texans, let's see. I'll give the Texans Bryce Young. Right? So Richardson, Bryce Young. And then I'd like to see the Raiders get up to 3. And it's going to get interesting because I think the Raiders are going to actually be in a position where they have a choice. Because every single year the Raiders, I always think nobody's going to be available when the Raiders pick. And then like everybody I like is available and they take the guy that I don't want. Right? That's what ends up happening all the time with the Raiders. It happened with Ruggs, happened with Arnett, like all these guys. It's just like all these guys are available, and you took the one guy that I wasn't even thinking you would ever take. I didn't have a scenario. I didn't have a loaded like downloadable content game map in my head about what was going to happen in that scenario. Completely shocked, uncharted territory. They do it all the time. But I think the Raiders are going to have Stroud and Levis on the board. Truly, I think that's what's going to end up happening. They're going to have it on the board. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like Levis more, dude. I just do. I'm willing to be wrong on that one because these guys, this is the most boomer bust quarterback class I've ever seen. But I think the boom for all four guys is still pretty high to where like you got to take the risk. It's not like last year with Kenny Pickett and guys like that where you're like, none of these guys really excite me. These guys all have big playability. Stroud just has the least of the four, in my opinion. I think people are trying to pick a guy that doesn't suck when they pick CJ Stroud. All right. Like people that want CJ Stroud are like, he doesn't suck. And there's no chance that he sucks, which I don't think is true. All right. Like, I don't think that's true. So for me, I like Levis. I like Levis and Richardson a lot, both of them, because I think they're gambles, right? I will admit that every single downside that people bring up about the two of them is true, but I take that risk. Look at the New York Jets. They draft Zach Wilson a couple of years ago. They're already on to Aaron Rodgers, probably, right? It's not that hard to erase your mistake. The worst thing you can do is to have a average to whatever middling above average quarterback and pay him $40 million a year for 9 years, right? That's when you get in trouble. If you are boom or bust, you can move on from the bust very quick, especially with these rookie contracts. You eat the cost up, you roll the dice again. That's why I think you got to swing. You got to go high. You got to go high with these guys. Because Will Levis could be Jake Locker, straight up. He could be straight up bad. Jake Locker, bad. Could also be like a Justin Herbert. Could also be a, I won't say Josh Allen, but like that style, right? Like I think he could do that. I think Anthony Richardson, Dante Culpepper, I think Shea, he could be that, right? Big arm, extend the play. People forget about Dante pre-knee injury. Like Donovan McNabb, too. I can even see like Donovan McNabb like situation with those guys where it's like he's actually way better from the pocket than you think. And you got to swing for that. Stroud just doesn't. I'd be okay with it. I'm like, hey, and I made it. I tweeted about it. I said, this is like optimism mode for me right now. I don't buy jerseys of guys till they get their second contract, which hardly ever happens with the Raiders. But and I haven't bought a Crosby jersey just because, but I do love him. No disrespect. But if the Raiders draft a quarterback with their first round pick, right? Even if they trade back, right? Which I don't think that's going to happen, but even if they trade back and take a quarterback, I'm going to buy the jersey that night. I'm in that mode. I think it's time. I think it's time to be insanely optimistic about this team, even if it's like to a fault. Let's just do it. It's not, at least we're not rolling with the same thing over and over again. It's a new beginning. We're doing a Marie Kondo style, get rid of everything that doesn't spark joy, right? Bring in things that might. They might not, but you can get rid of them a lot faster, especially if they're bad. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I think the Raiders are going to have a pick between Levis and Stroud. I hope they go Levis in that sense. I think Stroud's going to end up going to like Detroit. This is what I think. I think Stroud's going to go to Detroit, and I think Will Levis will be a Raider. It just feels right. That's all I'm going to say. No Hendon Hooker. He's old, and I'm not holding that against him, but those guys don't usually go that high, right? Like you look at guys like Brandon Whedon and stuff like that. Like he ended up going first round, but what I wouldn't mind. Here's another scenario that I wouldn't mind. Let's say Raiders don't want any of those top 4 quarterbacks. I think they should. Let's say they don't. Let's say they go, our defense stinks. Maybe Jalen Carter's there at 7. I know people are saying like, well, it's Carr related thing, and they just had Henry Ruggs. None of that front office is here anymore. That got rid of Henry Ruggs, drafted Henry Ruggs. That is a completely wiping hitting reset on the Super Nintendo where you slid the purple button up. Like, it's done. Like, those guys don't care about that, I don't think. So let's say they take Jalen Carter at 7. I even like both DBs. I like Christian Gonzalez a lot. I also like Weatherspoon a lot. Those two guys excite me. More in a trade down, but they do excite me. So at 7, obviously, if somehow Will Anderson falls to 7, I don't think that's going to be the case. But Khalil Mack fell to 5 one time, so Will Anderson could fall to 7. I could see. Then what I would do is I think Hendon Hooker is a nice late first, early second. Raiders do pick early in the second. But let's think about the different, and this is going to sound weird to you guys. I would trade up. If I was going to take Hendon Hooker in the second round with my 38th pick, I would trade up into the first. And here's why. You get an extra year when you do that. You probably give up like a third round pick, right? Which, yeah, that kind of sucks. You don't really, the Raiders don't have picks to burn as far as like third round goes. And I'll get into the draft strategy a little bit later. This is going to be a long one today, guys. Sorry. So if you guys got a cut or anything, this will be all on the YouTube channel later. I got a lot of thoughts. You get the 5th year option with Hendon Hooker. The Ravens did this with Lamar Jackson. All right. And I think a lot of people think the Ravens are butchering the Lamar Jackson situation. I think they're playing him like a fiddle, and I think they're doing the best job they can with Lamar Jackson right now. They've basically alphaed him. And I think their organization is awesome. I think everybody learned from Ozzie Newsome being there to being the best GM in football. Like, truly. Howie Roseman has taken that, reign as best GM, but I think the Ravens just do everything right. It's insane. So yeah, right. You get Hendon Hooker, who is old already. All right. That's why he's going to slip. He's coming off an injury too. So if that injury is kind of fucking him up, maybe he needs a little time to develop. Their offense at Tennessee's a little Ohio State-ish at times with as far as does it translate to the next level. You might need a redshirt year. So you want the 5th year. So you want to be able to have 4 years of him as a starter, right? Then by that time, since he's old, he's like in his 30s by that time. And you're like, okay, maybe I move on to somebody else. But I do like Hendon Hooker. Tanner McKee, I'm wishy-washy on. I'm not sure I love him. That David Shaw offense leaves a lot to be desired, but so does Tanner McKee. But he's big, strong, can move. Like, again, those guys. But if you're going to take a guy at the beginning of the second, take him in the first round. Get the 5th year. Unless the team's asking for like a second rounder or something, then you don't. But like an additional second. But again, if it's for your quarterback, it's tough to put a price on a quarterback, right? Like, it's tough to put a price. If you think you have your guy, you got to go get him. And I'm not the biggest Josh McDaniels fan. I'm a bigger fan of Dave Ziegler than I am Josh McDaniels. But I'm not the biggest Josh McDaniels fan, but I want to see him with a guy from the draft that he wants. All right. That's the way you judge these offensive coaches. So it's just an interesting way to look at it, right? I do like Hendon Hooker. I just, definitely not in the top 10, of course, but if you were decided you wanted to do like Christian Gonzalez, Jalen Carter, any of these guys, you wanted to get a blue chip defensive player, there's not that many of them in this draft, at least that we know of at the moment. That NIL kind of screwed them because you had that defensive end from Florida State return. A lot of guys return. The NIL is really helping college sports. It's kind of, I think it's going to end up making some drafts not as loaded as in years past, though. But Levis gives me Brady Quinn vibes. You ever see Brady Quinn play? Damn. Levis gives me Brady Quinn vibes. DJ, hey, man. I don't know about that one. I'm just going to say that much. Brady Quinn was a statue. Levis can move. Brady Quinn threw a nice ball. I'll give you that. He threw a nice ball. But no. Give me Levis. I'll eat that one. I understand how it can be bad, but no, I don't think it's as bad as you think. So let's talk about before I go back, to the draft. I do want to talk about Josh Jacobs a little bit because I think Ziegler's made a couple mistakes. One of them is the Chandler Jones signing, though I didn't hate it at the time, so it's really tough for me to be like, wow, stupid job. I think we all were pretty excited about that. And then I thought Rocky Sin played pretty well. He's just not a number one, right? We asked him to be a number one, which is classic Raiders, is trading for a good player, expecting him to be a Hall of Famer, and then he's not a Hall of Famer. Therefore, we cast him off to another team where he's a serviceable starter for like 10 years, right? Jihad Ward still gets meaningful snaps on teams better than the Raiders. It's I hate to say it. So that's what we end up doing with a lot of these guys. But the Josh Jacobs thing, just I don't understand what we're doing with this guy. Fifth year option, I was either way on. I was like, oh, either pick up the fifth year or let him go. But if you don't pick up the fifth year option, you let him go. You don't pick up the fifth year option, then franchise tag. It doesn't make any sense. You can spend that any way you want. Well, they didn't know. They knew. I don't know, man. If you didn't know what Josh Jacobs was, that's kind of weird. All right. There's plenty of film of Josh Jacobs. And you know your system. Maybe Josh Jacobs fits that system a lot better than he did John Gruden's system, right? Maybe that's that. I'd even say that's probably a fact. But you should know that from the get go. Pick up the fifth year. The fifth year is a steal compared to what they're paying Josh Jacobs for this year, and that's if Josh Jacobs decides to play football this year. Do you really think he's going to play on that franchise tag? Because all I'm hearing is the Raiders will have a chance to negotiate and get a long-term deal done, which I don't want. So we're giving Josh Jacobs $10 million a year, and I know people say, "Not my money." Yeah, but it's our cap. We're fans. It's our salary cap, so it is our money. Sorry, hate to break it to you. I'd love to have everybody pay everybody a bunch of money and just not have the, but there's a salary cap. It's what makes the league great. With Josh Jacobs, I don't want a long-term deal with him because I don't think a long-term deal is gonna like make me sick to my stomach. All right. And people are like, "Oh, they have so much cap space this year. They have 40 million." Yeah, I'm sure they could increase that by like 20, 60 million or whatever. It's not that much. And what's your plan at quarterback? Because I thought when they franchise tag Josh Jacobs, I was kind of like, okay, we're gonna get a veteran quarterback, and they want to make one last run with like Devontae, veteran quarterback Darren Waller. Tried this offense out one more time, and maybe Carr was the problem. Not exactly the route I'd want to go, but sure. So it doesn't seem like they're going to do that, right? Not with a veteran that's makes a splash, right? The veteran would be Jimmy G, Baker Mayfield, Jared Stidham, blah blah blah. Guys that aren't, you don't anchor, that aren't the anchor of your franchise. It just doesn't make sense. Pick up his fifth year option, and even if he had the year from hell last year, it's still better to have him as part of a committee this year. But now you're gonna rock with him as the lead back again, which you might get another contract year, Josh Jacobs. I still think that he ran the way he ran because he didn't know where his next check was coming from. Sorry, hate to break it to you, but running backs are essentially Uber drivers in this economy now, save for a couple of them. A couple of them got paid a lot, and guess what's happening to the running backs that got paid a couple of years ago? Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Joe Mixon. Nick Chubb is still under contract, but for how long, right? Who do you think they're going to move around to try to make up for lost time with that horrible Deshaun Watson deal, right? Nick Chubb's going to be a guy that gets cut, I think, within a year, and it'll be like, people are going to be like, oh man, how could they do that? You have to. Running backs are replaceable, even the best ones. You can at least replace their production with a couple of guys making less money. It's a fact. No other position in football can be replaced like a running back can. It's just the way it is. And I get the romantics, the running back romantics. There's nothing more fun than watching a dominant running back. It's like watching a dominant pass rush. It's just like you never get sick of it. A guy that can get 7 yards a carry, like in a game, and just dominate another team's defense, break tackles, long runs. And Jacobs was doing stuff that he hadn't done in years prior. But you're basically saying if you give Josh Jacobs, because I think Josh Jacobs is either not going to play or he's going to be signed to a long-term deal, which both of those aren't great to me, in my opinion. Because if Josh Jacobs has a couple years of 13, 14 million a year. I think he goes into the injury tent a little bit more. I think when his shoulder's kind of like, kind of hurts. I think remember the Seattle game where we weren't sure if he was going to play or not, but then he has, of course, the game of the century in that game. Does he play if he has a long contract in that game? You got to ask. You got to ask. I tend to lean no. And this is not. I'm not picking on Josh Jacobs. I'm not picking on him. It's not him that I don't like. It's just bad process, right? The Titans are going to get rid of Derrick Henry, the far and away the best running back in the game of the last 5 years. If he can, if he, what I'm saying is you see these teams, they chase, they pay a running back and they try to make a run at it. A lot of times it doesn't really work, right? The Eagles are going to let Miles Sanders walk because they don't care. They know that they can replace his production, and even if you don't replace his production down to the single yard or touchdown, you can still invest the money elsewhere to maybe your passing game getting stronger, or even just spread out with a couple running backs. It's why I don't do this. It's not anything against Jacobs. I think he was amazing last year, but at the end of the day, he was so amazing last year. The Raiders won 6 games. It's not all because of him. I'm just saying. It's just a different league nowadays. As much as I want to see it return to the Eddie George, Marshall Faulk, like those just amazing, running back centered teams, like I love those. But I don't know, man. Like I think that was a botched move. All right. And they're still going to have to draft somebody this year unless Zamir White really jumps up. He didn't get enough carries last year, but from the time I did, I think he has some vision issues that he's really going to have to correct. He definitely can. And I like his breakaway speed. But this year, running back and tight end in the draft, I want to in the draft this year. I'll parlay this into some draft talk here. I want to replace Foster Moreau. Let Foster walk. It's fine. I like Foster Moreau fine, but I think there's a feasible way to replace Foster Moreau, especially with this tight end class this year. You're talking about, my guy Marcus Johnson's been posting some amazing clips of like tight ends that I really hadn't heard of. And guys from like the Big Ten and stuff that are just maybe underutilized and stuff. You know who else was a Big Ten tight end that was underutilized in the passing game? George Kittle, right? Guys like that. You can grab some of those guys. I want to find a running back in the mid rounds, and I want to find a tight end in the mid rounds, a tight end 2, perhaps a tight end 1, because Waller might start getting the injury bug, and we might be at that point in his career, unfortunately. So that's just my draft strategy there. And one more thing on the draft. One more thing, and I'm sorry I don't have like a lot of specific names. I don't have a specific names in mind, but I was looking at the Raiders draft picks for the year because I was like, a lot of people were telling me for a while because I wanted to trade back from 7 if there's no quarterback. It's still my strategy. It's either quarterback at 7 or trade down. That's still my thing, right? And the only way you're going to trade down is if you're passing on a quarterback, probably, because people trade up for quarterbacks. That's really what you see nowadays. You've kind of seen the first round chill out a little bit. Either the trades happen before the draft to solidify the draft order, or you kind of just see move ups for quarterbacks. Kind of not as much movement as you saw in a couple of years past. So I was looking at the Raiders picks for this year. This is in the Athletic. I saw this. And so they pick 7th overall, 38th overall, 70th. Those are all their picks in the top 100. They have like 11 draft picks, but only 3 in the top 100, right? Which I think is 2 separate things. Like you can, I don't know, like you can say, oh, they have all these picks. Well, okay, if they have 3 in the 5th round, 2 in the 6th round, 2 in the 7th. So what I want them to do is, I think with the way there's a lot of what the Raiders are missing is a lot of like depth, right? A lot of depth and just like quality, competent starters, right? You either have Max Crosby, Devontae Adams level starters, Josh Jacobs, or you have you know, Jayon Brown, you know what I mean, or linebacker, or whoever. God, it's tough to even name some of these guys, like these backups and stuff. Or Darian Butler, or who's the other guy, the white guy, the running back they had, or the linebacker they had last year. You know, all these guys that it's like they shouldn't have been starting. It's not their fault, but at the end of the day, you need more. Like they're not. I don't think they're missing as much star power as people think. I think they're missing a lot of just competent starters, right? Like if you look at the 49ers, they have these guys like Aziz Al-Shair, the linebacker, who was kind of like their swing linebacker, kind of, went in for injury and stuff like that. He's also available on the open market right now, so I would not mind bringing him in. But like that guy would have like killed it for the Raiders last year. He like had a tough time seeing the field for the 49ers, right? You see what I'm saying? So they need guys like that. So my proposal for that is if you don't have your quarterback in the top 10, if it's not looking right, if the only quarterback left at 7 is the one you don't want, trade back. Somebody probably wants him. Trade back, get a second, get a third, whatever the team gives you. You want to get as many second and third round picks as you possibly can. Those are where you find competent starters if you know what you're doing on draft day, right? And if you don't know what you're doing, then we need to fire Ziegler. So that's I want either way. We need to stock up these picks and get as many throws as get as many darts to throw at the board as possible. All right, we had that chance under Mike Mayock. He showed he could not do that. So unfortunately, we had an insane amount of picks and we traded good star players for them. This is a bit different. But that is the Patriot way too, by the way. Turn one pick into a bunch of picks in the second and third round. Find guys that fit, find guys that love football, find athletes, all of the above, put them in there. All right. That's what you do. I know it sounds a lot more simple the way I say it. Of course, it's not simple, but get more darts to throw at the dartboard if you're not going to get your quarterback. Now, if your quarterback's there, go get him by any means. Those are the two strategies. Go get your quarterback by any means necessary or stockpile picks. Those are the two. Now, conversely, so at this point, let's say they trade down from 7 to 14, right? For the Patriots or to whoever, mid rounds, they pick up a second round pick, right? And they're picking at 14 to 16, that area. Get your guy at 16, right tackle, linebacker, whatever looks good. Best player available at that point. Just get a very good player at that point. They also, so that what was I talking about? Where are most of their picks at? They have 3 5th round picks and 2 6th round picks and 2 7th round picks. You don't need to pick 3 times in the 5th round. Trade up with those back into the second to round 4 range, right? I want as many picks from rounds 2 to 4 as possible. So you trade up with those picks, trade down with your top picks if you're not getting your quarterback, right? Then that way, I would rather have, 5 or 6 picks and I'd rather have like 8 picks overall and lose 3 of my picks if I could make these other ones higher, right? If you end up with 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and like 2 fourths, and then you get rid of your 6th and 7th round picks, yeah, that's fine with me. That way you're able to get your roster on point. Then if they want to wait for quarterback next year, again, I'd rather have the quarterback this year, but this is just provided that they don't like any of the quarterbacks or the one they want's not there. That's my strategy there. If that didn't make sense, let me know, but I feel like it does. You don't need to pick 3 times in the 5th round. Yes, DJ, I actually love Cansey from Pitt. That defensive tackle, stud. Agree, stud. Definitely a perfect guy in a trade back scenario. That's all it is. Like also conversely, another thing you can do is even in free agency. Remember last year, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson goes for like a 5th round pick from the Saints. Now Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is going to make like $10 million a year on the open market, probably. So that doesn't seem as cost effective. But go find a team that's willing. Go to the Tennessee Titans. Go find some guys off their defense. You know what I'm saying? Go find some guys like that. Those Vrabel kind of Patriot mold guys. Bring them in with your 5th round pick, your 4th round pick, 6th round pick. When guys are looking to get rid of veterans to take on some of their salary, that's also what you can do with your late round picks. It's like we don't need all those 5th round picks. We don't need all those 6th round picks. You're not finding Tom Brady in the 6th round this year. Sorry. I know Brock Purdy came out last year, but even he's not Tom Brady. It's just either turn those late round picks turn 2 late round picks into 1 day 2 pick, or trade the farm for your franchise quarterback. Those are my 2 draft strategies. So, and you could do a little bit of both, to be honest. Like, you could trade up in the 1st round. You wouldn't have your 2nd round pick likely, and maybe something from the next year. But then you could also still do that same thing with your 5th round picks and try to get up into the 3rd again. You know what I mean? Like, what I loved about what the Patriots were doing for a long time was just getting as many picks as possible. Now, they already had their quarterback in place in Tom Brady. So they knew that all they needed was just like, I want more corners, more linebackers, more things like that. So it is a bit different because the Raiders need the quarterback, but it all depends on what year they want to get it. I tend to think that Ziegler isn't going to want to wait around for a quarterback because he might not be the GM next year if they have a bad year and it just doesn't look any better. I tend to think he's going to want to get his guy. But those are the 2 strategies. So let's talk free agency and then I'll get out of here. I don't know much about the free agents right now. I just want to talk process here. So I don't know about you guys, but every single year it's the same thing. Everybody has their little Christmas list of free agents that they want, and then the Raiders don't get any of them, and they sign a bunch of guys that aren't as good as them, and then people pump them up to be as good as the guy they actually wanted. Actually, I wanted this guy instead. Isn't that great? I actually wanted Malik Collins. Oh God, I loved him. Yeah, people like that. I've done it. I'm guilty. I don't think the Raiders need to make splashes in free agency. I don't like Javon Hargrave's going to get a bunch of money. All those Eagles defenders are going to get a bunch of money. It's going to probably be their last paydays, like big paydays. Granted, I think Javon Hargrave's awesome. So if he does become a Raider, I think that's great. But I think what the Raiders are going to need to do is really bargain shop. Competent starters. Don't try to find stars in free agency. Competent starters. Okay? Like, the Raiders need to eliminate just like cavernous, bottomless pits at certain positions, like linebacker. I think linebacker is still the worst position on the Raiders right now, by far. I even like Jared Stidham more than I like any linebacker on the Raiders. I mean, Divine Diablo, he still could be something, but the guys that started last year, was it Masterson? Was that the guy? I couldn't remember his name. Yeah, like all those guys. That is the worst position group on the Raiders by far. And I also think corner is pretty bad too, but I do like Rocky Sin. Nate Hobbs, it might not be the system for him. I say, in my opinion, trade Nate Hobbs to a Seattle cover 3 team. And that's Indy with the Gus Bradley scheme, or even back to Seattle. That's where he knows how to play well. See if you can get like a 4th-round pick out of somebody for that, 4th, 3rd-round pick or something for Nate Hobbs. That's what I would do, because I don't think he's going to fit this Patrick Graham system, unfortunately. So in free agency, I don't know some names. I'll let you guys do that. But what I want them to do is just I want them to get a quantity of free agents. Quantity, right? They still, obviously, these guys got to be good. You can't just get a bunch of nobodies. But instead of like last year, they went and got Devontae Adams, who I absolutely love, right? Kind of just like, we're just getting Devontae Adams. We have Derek Carr. We have Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. No one's going to stop us. That didn't exactly work out, right? Although I thought it was fine. What that did last year was they kind of weren't able to spend elsewhere, right? Like, and they did give guys some money. I mean, obviously they gave Chandler Jones and, these guys big money, but it was just a couple guys when obviously they had far more holes than that. So this year, I think just we'll hit the bargain bin, recycled bookstore. You know what I'm saying? Like secondhand store, thrift shopping, things like that. But with a good GM knows. Like I didn't give Patrick Graham the amount of shit that a lot of people did last year, although the end of the Rams game was pretty fucking bad, the coverages they were playing. But I didn't give him a lot of shit because I just was like, damn, dude, it's really just Max Crosby out there. And like a couple plays from Deron Harmon. Rocky Sin had some moments. Other than that, it was like, damn, dude, this team really stinks on defense. Like, this is really bad. Like, I any defensive coordinator would have struggled with that. Go find Patrick Graham guys. If you're running it back with him, go find some guys. They don't have to be world beaters. Just guys that like serve a position. Let Max we have an elite pass rusher in Max Crosby, right? Maybe go find another elite one in the draft if you think you have one, but go find a good starting pass rusher there. Get a bunch of just solid players. That's all it is. You know, it like you don't have to go get Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know that that would make sense if you're just going to start a rookie and you have Odell and Devontae. That could be wrong. And I think the position a lot of fans are in is that we need to keep making splashes. So then Devontae Adams still wants to stay here. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to end with a very controversial take here. I don't care if Devontae Adams is happy or not. I love Devontae Adams. It was an absolute pleasure to watch him play last year. Truly, it was really cool to see just like the Raiders have a wide receiver that nobody could stop. That being said, your decision at quarterback should not be centered around Devontae Adams. Quarterback is your next 5 years. Devontae Adams wants to be a part of that. I have no problem with that. If he doesn't, 2 first-round picks. I know that they can't even really trade him this year. He signed a long-term deal, so they can't even really trade him this year. It's too much dead money. But after a year, if he's like, yo, I don't want to do this like rebuilding thing anymore, cool, 2 first-round picks. It'll hurt, it'll sting, but that's just where you are as a franchise. Last year, they gambled on the current roster and tried to put a nice garnish, a nice like creme fraiche on the top of it. Shout out South Park, just on top of it. And with Devontae Adams and be like, this is all we needed. We're going to just light the division on fire. Again, I was intrigued in it. It's not going to work. But I would, in a perfect world, you get a good rookie quarterback in there that lights it up and is really exciting, and Devontae Adams is happy. We've seen that last year he appears to be quarterback proof. We've seen him with Aaron Rodgers, elite, Derek Carr, average, Jared Stidham, backup. We've seen him score touchdowns with all those guys in his career and look just as dominant. So we understand he's quarterback proof. So that's one thing I like about Devontae Adams. He's like, I'm just going to get mine. You trust me. You throw the ball to me. It's going to get caught. And that's what I do like about that. So some people might not like what I have to say there. I'm just saying this. I don't consider Devontae Adams the building block of the franchise. If anything, you treat him like Khalil Mack when you're ready to rebuild. Khalil Mack trade was good, and I make it 10 times out of 10. We did not select good players with the picks, unfortunately. So that's all I'm saying is like this year, Devontae Adams is going to be here, whether it's a rookie quarterback, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo, whether it's Baker Mayfield. I could see Devontae Adams being a little like, fuck, really? But at the end of the day, dude, like either you want to help us or you want to help us draft your replacement. That's the way I look at Devontae Adams. And I think a lot of fan bases have become way too pro player. They want to make sure the players are happy. Look, man, are you a Raider fan or are you a fan of one player? You got to do what's best with the Raiders, even if it hurts in the moment. This is how you build a winning team. If you have a superstar talent and the superstar don't want to be there no more or wants a new contract that you don't necessarily want to pay, you got to flip them, sell high, and then use those picks wisely that you get for them. The Raiders haven't been able to do that. That doesn't mean you stop trying that. So that being said, I think that's it for me today. I'll try to. The off season's my time. I'll probably, if I'm home from work, I will do a draft live stream, or some kind of draft coverage. I have to. I've been doing my other podcast, Rare Candy, and I have another podcast called The Back Wall, which is pretty fun. That's all like sports, kind of, turn the clock back sports and stuff, which has been fun. That's been really fun. So I haven't been doing these as much, but I do appreciate you guys for coming out and watching this. My name's Glen Rockney. If you don't follow me on Twitter, although you guys probably do, it's at Glen Rockney. I still post about the Raiders a lot. I love them. Football's my, still one of my it might be my number one thing. It's tough to say that it isn't. So, yeah, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.